Hey guys, welcome back. Behavior Strategies for Class. This is the podcast that helps educators create calmer classrooms and more connected students. So today we're going to talk about 5 trauma-informed ways that you can support your students' regulation. Because I know still coming back from the holidays and breaks and all of these fun things, your students may still be struggling getting back into the swing of things, back into learning, back into regulating themselves so they are ready to learn. So listen in, guys, and know that this is all about supporting that regulation, building safety, and protecting those connections with your students. All right, guys, let's get started. Welcome to Behavior Strategies for Class. I am Diane Bachman, your behavior paraprofessional with over 15 years of experience working in special education. And I'm so glad you're here because I'll be teaching you about social emotional learning, behavior strategies, trauma-informed care, and more. So if you are tired of being frustrated and not knowing what to do with your students who have challenging and disruptive behavior, you're in the right place. Now, if you're ready to become more equipped to help your students learn and grow, let's listen in to today's episode. And as always, guys, subscribe to this podcast, share it with other educators that you know, and also leave a review. If any of these strategies have helped you and your students, I would love to hear about that. And so would other educators. So I would appreciate it when you get the chance. Do it even now, leaving a review. Thank you so much. So we are constantly reteaching and teaching supporting strategies for our students, especially when they've been back. Like we've had one student struggling getting back into writing. Writing is something he's always struggled with. We have other students just barely making it up into their classroom, laying on the hallway floor. We've had other students bolting out of the school into parking lots, refusing to come in. All of these fun things. And granted, these happen all year, but they feel definitely a lot more coming back after break. And so we are definitely always reminding them, you're at school. These are the expectations when you're at school. Like we know when they're at home, they may not have any expectations. They may not really have, a structured schedule. And obviously that's fine. They're at home. But we just remind, when you're in school, this is what you need to be doing. When you're in school, it's time to do your work. So we just constantly have to reteach and remind them, you're in school. These are the expectations now. So one of the 5 trauma-informed ways that you can support your students' regulation is remembering, number 1, that regulation is a skill that needs to be taught, that they need to learn. Sometimes I know I assume that they already know what they need to do, or why can't they calm down, or that's not a big deal. Why are they making it such a huge big deal? And just reminding myself at times too, they really haven't learned this skill. And so we can help them learn this skill. And so we want to normalize movement and sensory breaks, because these are some of the ways that help your students get regulation. Some of our students love to draw. Some of them love to color. Some of them love to really just walk or run outside. We have a field next to our school. Sometimes we've had students, they just want to run. It's all right, go ahead and run. And thankfully, they stay on campus when they're running. They'll run to a certain spot and then come back. And that just helps release a lot of energy and anxiousness that they just can't seem to get rid of. And so that does help some of our students calm down. I totally understand that may not be doable for you with your students, but if there's some way that they can get some type of movement break, whether it's just like exercises, maybe in a calm corner in your classroom or maybe just outside your classroom. We've had students do wall sits, wall push-ups, even pushing heavy things in the hallway have worked for our students as well. So lots of different movement breaks and sensory. Sometimes it's just tactile, like they need to feel and touch other things. And so having maybe a fidget box or a sensory box, like we have sand, kinetic sand, we'll have Play-Doh, we have clay, we have like beads, we have sometimes rubber bands, lots of different sensory ideas and movements that you can use, and being able to let your students know when you see them maybe fidgeting extra in their seats, and definitely making this available to all of your students. All of your students, I'm sure at one time or another, they're going to feel anxious. They're going to feel maybe overwhelmed, and just giving them the opportunity, hey, just sit here for a minute, try this, and, have them come back to work. I think those are great ways to help all of your students learn how to regulate themselves. So number 2 is that modeling. So of course, I talk about this all the time, and you are modeling for your students all day long, every day. Right? The good, the bad, the ugly, right? We're human. None of us are perfect. We're not going to have perfect days all a year long. But modeling, ultimately, how do you regulate yourself and how can you help the whole class? So in this support, you can do breathing, teaching them breathing as a class. And what I love about this is that it doesn't take up a lot of time. You can do it randomly throughout the day and just remind, okay, guys, we're going to do our candle breathing. And so everybody holds up their 5 fingers and takes turn blowing them out, right? You can blow them all out at the same time, have everybody, however you want to do it. But just modeling again, and you may just lead that and say, you know what, guys, I'm feeling like a little overwhelmed right now. Let's just take a quick breathing break. And so you do the breathing and you're just modeling right then and there. Like, okay, I'm feeling anxious, overwhelmed, stressed, whatever it is. And just showing them like, this is one way that helps me calm down, that helps me regulate myself. So I'm ready. You're ready to give your best for your students. It is so empowering for them to see how authentic and real that you are, right? Because sometimes they look at you and you can't do anything wrong and you're this perfect person and you never have a, stressful day. Where, like I said, reality is we're all human. We definitely have those moments. And what do you do in those moments? Again, you're not going to always react, perfectly and model it perfectly, but every example can be that opportunity to teach. As you know, right? I know I'm preaching to the choir because you guys are the educators. You are the powerhouse of the school system. And so your influence just carries on. And we are so grateful and thankful for that. So number 3, another trauma-informed support that you can have for your students is using language that reduces shame, right? Growing up, it's always, what's wrong with you? What did you do that for? That was stupid. I can't believe you did that. You're an idiot. All these different things that you hear, and it's just shaming. And it's not really helpful, right? It doesn't really teach you like, okay, what can I learn? What should I do? All of these things. So in this, you can use language as like, let's try that again. or you're not in trouble, we're figuring this out. Right? You're focusing on the behavior. And it's bringing in that collaboration too. And it's also giving ownership back. Even though they don't realize it, you can ask, so what do you think went wrong there? Or do you think your behavior hurt that other person? Or do you think there could have been a better way that you could have reacted? It gets them thinking how they can respond differently. So we are not always giving them the answers. We're not always telling them what to do. You're giving them the opportunity to think for themselves, which gives them ownership back on their behavior. Because it's the behavior that you're shaping. And of course, that starts with their mind and thinking more positively and productively. You are helping shape their behavior to be more positive and productive. So focus on the behavior, not the shaming. Number 4, offer choices to restore control. This is something I talk about too all the time, giving them a voice and a choice. And these are just little things. These are little things we do all day long with our students. And it's just like, okay, do you want to sit in this table or that table? Do you want to use this chair or that chair? Because we have like wiggle seats, we have rocking chairs, we have regular chairs. Do you want to sit in the corner? Sometimes we'll sit on the floor and do the work. Do you want this pencil or a colored pencil? Do you want a marker? Do you want a crayon? This paper or that coloring sheet? I mean, these are just little things, but it gives them that feel of being in control. And a lot of students that struggle with behaviors and control, they don't have any at home. And granted, they're kids, right? The parents, the adults in their lives are supposed to be making good choices and caring for their child the best way that they can. But unfortunately, that is not always the case. And so when they come to school, they want control. They want to be able to control what's happening because there's no other way that they feel safe. So by giving them a voice and a choice empowers them to feel like they're in control. I really believe that is powerful. And then number 5, to remember that it's not always defiance. Their behavior is not always defiance. And I'm sure some of you will not agree with me, but sometimes it's just a skill that they're lacking. It's kind of crazy to ask certain things and they're like, no, we didn't know that, or we've never done that, or whichever. And to remember, again, the adults in their home may not always be teaching them these different skills. And so just taking a minute back, like, okay, what skill is really missing here? And what support do they need in this area? How can you help them grow in this area? So like I said, one of our students really struggled in writing and he would shut down, he would avoid, all of these things. And so we were finally able to push in and help him, support him to do his writing. He was very capable of doing the writing, and a lot of your students are capable of doing these skills, but that doesn't mean they know it automatically. So your job is to continue to model that and teach that for them. And again, it doesn't have to be this big, drawn out, huge lesson. Like I said, you're modeling this each and every day. But sometimes you have to take a step back and look, okay, is there a skill that's missing here where they constantly have this behavior? What support do they need? And maybe it's not academic support. Maybe it's some type of emotional support. Maybe they need to check in with a school counselor or their school social worker or their school psychologist. Or maybe admin. Maybe there's somebody else that they can check in with during the day. Giving them that extra support to know that it's not always just defiance. They just don't know. And they're not communicating that. Like we had one student who was struggling with, I forget what the assignment was. I think it was a writing assignment too. And he was overwhelmed, he was upset, he was mad, he was this, and he was that. But he couldn't hear. Like, we're trying to tell him, like, we are here to help you. We're here to support you and help you in what you need. And sometimes he would just go on and on and on about what he's missing or what he's not understanding. And so I have to wait. Sometimes you have to wait and let them vent until they can hear you, and then remind them, okay, we are here. What can we do? So these are 5 trauma-informed supports to help your student regulate, to be ready to learn when they are in your classroom. So number 1 is remembering that regulation is a skill that needs to be learned. Number 2, to model that regulation. Number 3, using language that reduces shame. And that goes back to also what's wrong with you to what happened to you. Like, what happened to that student to make them react that way? Sometimes it is a little deeper. And then number 4, giving them choices to restore control, giving them back a little bit of control where they feel safe. And then number 5 is to remember that not all their behavior is defiance. There could be some skills that are missing. And then what can you do to support them, to improve those skills? So remember, you guys are doing amazing. You know, we've barely been back like a week and a half, even though it seems like forever. And we are already exhausted. And it was nice to have, I'm recording this on Monday, Martin Luther King birthday. And so it is really nice to have a day off and get caught up on other things and sleep, especially. So I get it. And you're doing even more with teaching and lessons and all of the things that go with that. And so I thank you again for your dedication, your commitment to being the best educator that you can be. And so I want to leave you with this quote from Dr. Kaylin Soma, who is Chief Clinical Officer at Star Commonwealth. And she says, kids who've experienced trauma have difficulty learning unless they feel safe and supported. And honestly, that's really all that trauma-informed strategies are, is helping your students feel safe and supported. That truly makes all the difference in the world to them. So what support strategy will you be using this week? I would love to hear from you and see how it went. And so email me, Diane at Behavior Strategies for Class. You can message me on Facebook, LinkedIn. I would so love to hear from you and how it is going for you and how these strategies, these supports are helping you and your students. Thanks so much, guys, for listening. And I will see you next week as we continue to reboot in January, getting back in the swing of things. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate your support. And if I have encouraged you, motivated you to continue to learn, to support your students, even better, to help them strive in your classroom, Please leave a review, hit that subscribe button so that others can see they can learn and grow here as well. Thank you.